Hi, everyone, and welcome into the latest episode of NABC Academy. Thanks again for joining us today. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to remind all of our viewers that each of these NABC Academy episodes are archived for free, easy to access at nabc.com and the NABC's YouTube channel. They're also now available in podcast form. You can simply search NABC in the iTunes Store or on the podcast app. And with that, I'm pleased to welcome today's guest. He's the head coach of the 2017 NCAA Division III national champion Babson Beavers and the 2016-17 NABC Division III Coach of the Year, Coach Stephen Brennan. Coach Brennan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
We do appreciate you taking your time. Coach, we'll jump right in. We'll start by going over just some of your personal background. So you've spent 22 years at Babson, but if you could just take us through what your career path early on looked like, what were some of the early jobs you have, and how you ended up landing the head coaching job there at Babson.
Sure. I went to Bates College, played there for 4 years. Had thought about coaching when I was there, just probably inspired by my former coach, George Wigton. And when I first got out, I tried business for a year, but I was going to games every single night. So I kept sending names up to that coach back then was Rick Boyages up at Bates. He moved on with Jimmy O'Brien at BC and then later at Ohio State. And so I worked for him for 1 year and then came down back home. I'm from Belmont, Mass. And I ended up working with Serge DeBarry for 6 years as the assistant coach here at Babson. During that time, I got my master's at Tufts. And when Serge went to Assumption, I think it was just me versus the janitor, and I won and I got the job. So they kept me.
Well, that's great. So looking back in those early stages of your career, as you were getting started and kind of built your career there at Babson, what were some of the personal qualities and the professional qualities that you think were really important and vital to your ability to advance in the profession?
I think that both Rick and Serge had a great impact on me as a person. I think Rick was very much a relentless guy, and he was very focused on, you never take never until it's over as far as recruiting went for Division III. And I think he instilled in me a great work ethic, whereas I think Serge was very much a mentor as far as thinking about the game, thinking about personnel. And, it's not what you do, but how you do it. And I think that in the time with Serge, we had a fair amount of success. I get to do all the recruiting, a lot of the scouting. And so I think with him, he just kind of brought me along. And whenever I asked a question, he gave me a question in return. So I did a lot of kind of soul searching and thinking. And then I would meet with other coaches like Dick Whitmore up at Colby. And, so I think, definitely influenced by a number of people. And even this week, I'm going up to see Dick Whitmore up at Colby. Up in Maine. He's retired now, but he's still very tight with the game. And, Brad Stevens has become a good friend and mentor as well. And I'm going to be doing a roundtable with him next week as well. So I think that it's kind of, for me, it's always been, you need to continue to develop your craft and the game keeps changing and people keep changing. And, if you're not learning, then you're not going to be ready. So I think it's a continuous learning situation for me.
You mentioned several coaches there that were really beneficial to your career advancement, guys that you've trusted, for advice. How important throughout your whole career have those mentors been, and why do you think it's so important for coaches at any level to have mentors and trusted advisors in the profession?
I think that when you start, you just work and work and work, and sometimes you don't have the purpose and the step back and perspective that you need to be successful. Because ultimately, it's how do we interact and build relationships and make students better, as people off the court and as players on the court. And I think Serge always kept it, very much, it's about building your relationships. And so I think that he's been there, through good times and bad, and he's always been able to speak directly and frankly with me so that when I'm in a situation that, I might be struggling in, or maybe he just comes by and watches a game, he's always given me feedback. And I think that you always look for critical feedback because, as much as you're the toughest on yourself, sometimes you just need that perspective from someone who's already done it. I think with Dick Whitmore, he won so many games up at Colby and was a legend back in the day. And I think he gave me a completely different perspective. And in terms of that, that opportunity was imperative for me, to be successful, because he challenged me to think about the game in different ways. So I think that, building relationships on one end and then staying current and thinking about things from different perspectives can really make a difference, as far as how it goes. And, every summer I try and study a different facet of the game, or, learn something different from a player standpoint. How do you make a difference in their lives? How do different people do it? So, obviously, different coaches have written plenty of self-help books on that stuff, like Pitino or Calipari, et cetera.
Staying along these same lines as mentoring and relationships, now that you've established yourself in your career, how are you trying to serve as a mentor to whether it be your assistants or any coaches that you come across with? How are you trying to serve that next generation like coaches in your past have served you?
Yeah, I take that very seriously. I think that, my secondary vocation is to not only, make a difference in our current players' lives and help them get jobs through our alums and our alumni network. The other piece is to give back to the profession and, have other people know that, it's fine to talk about basketball and how you're doing. So I have a number of coaches in the area here that I'll catch up and grab lunch with in and out of season. And, and we all talk about the same stuff. And then with our own department, I've known a number of coaches here for years. So I think you try and give back that way. And then I think that you're always trying to mentor, your current assistants, and, they challenge you and you challenge them. So I think that, we've had a number of full-time assistants, going all the way back to Chris Bartley, who's the head coach and very successful over at WPI, to Drew Cooper, who's at St. Thomas More down in Kentucky. And then we have another guy who's now an athletic director at a local high school. So, I still stay in touch with a number of those guys. And, you're just trying to give them an idea that there's no perfect recipe to becoming a head coach, but you got to work, you got to get to know people. And then, we always say RDLP, recruit daily or perish, because that's really what it comes down to. You can be a great X and O guy, but you need to have players to be successful.
That's great. So shifting gears a little bit, you guys obviously had a season for the ages this last year, culminating in a national championship. Just first off, talking about that experience, what was it like? What was it like for you personally, for your staff, and to just see the kids achieve really probably their highest goals as basketball players?
Yeah, it's funny because, we talked about mentors previously, and, Serge DeBerry always said, hey, why not us? Why not us win a national title even 22 years ago? And, the 3 years ago, we went to the Final Four for the first time as a program. And, I think we learned a lot. We certainly were, on the job training in that situation. And I think that really helped us prepare. It helped me prepare a lot as far as going back a second time. The venue didn't look quite as big the second time. You treated it more like a business trip. A lot of our guys had been there 3 years ago. So I think that for them, especially the 6 seniors, this was a culminating season where we were going to do everything in our power to, get back to the Final Four, but not just get there, but go there to win, and I think that your mindset and how you approach not only player development, but your development throughout the season as a team and as a unit and as a program really changes when you feel like you have that ability to go do something special. And, I just hoped every day that they would have an opportunity to, go back to the Final Four, which, it's so hard to do. You got to win 4 games to get there, and there's no perfect answer as far as that goes, and so I think that the experiences from 3 years ago prior to that really made a difference and helped us, map out how we were going to do it. Because I think that there's, like everything else, there's a lot of ways to do it, but you got to do it according to your personnel and according to how they look at the game and what their, what their commitment level is and how they stay motivated, because it's a long season from October to March.
You hear a lot about the pressure that the players feel in playing in a game like that. What about the pressure that the coaches feel? And you, as obviously leading a staff of assistants and managers, how did you manage your staff in dealing with the pressure of not just playing through the whole tournament, but then especially once you reach the Final Four and the championship game?
I think that, like say, they're saying heavy lies the crown, and I think that we've been getting everybody's best game for 3 years, from the time we were making our first run to the Final Four to the Sweet 16 run the next year to last year's championship. So a lot of it came down to, understanding what we needed to do to be successful and focusing on our strengths and our abilities, as opposed to, we certainly do plenty of scouting on the other teams, but, the things that we do well, we do really well. And the number one thing is that, our group was very much unflappable because we were getting everybody's best shot. So there was games where teams would make 8 or 10 threes in the first half, and you had to just kind of keep believing in what you do and not get too high or too low, and knowing that over the course of 40 minutes, that if we play to our level, we're going to find a way to win. So I think that we really got focused on just ourselves a lot, and our approach was, how do we get ready in our best selves going into every single game, because every night you're getting the best of the other team.
After achieving success like that, really the highest level of success a coach can achieve, personally, how do you keep that from, frankly, going to your head? How do you stay humble, and how do you stay hungry for goals in the future?
Yeah, I think that for me, I'm fortunate. I was a little late to the dance on family, so I'm 52, but I have 5-year-old twins who are, keeping me in place every single day. And we got 2 dogs. I'm walking at 5:15 in the morning every day. So when you're picking up their poop, you know where you stand. So I think that, I think that keeps me where I need to be. And I think that also just that, each season is unto itself. And yeah, you want to go back and do the great things, but you got to go back and do the simple things first, and kind of find a vision for this team and what they're going to need to do to play to their best and really make a difference. So I think that, for me, this was incredibly fulfilling. It was definitely a bucket list item. You always dream of coaching in the Final Four, and, to be able to win it, it's such rarefied air when you think about there's only 3 teams in the Northeast that ever won it, and 24 total, in Division III because of the multiple winners, and I think that, you take a breath and you go, wow, that's just crazy. But then you get back to what you do. I mean, we had 3 weeks of day camp, and we're out at all the Ivy camps trying to find the right people. And so I think that as long as you stay in the present, you're really good. I think, and look, we graduated 6 guys who made a huge difference, in our program and in the community, So I think that, now the challenge is, how do you get the next group, ready to go and integrate or assimilate the next set of parts.
Yeah, you segued really right into my next question with the next group of guys in this upcoming season that is starting here within the next couple of months. How do you keep the success for your returning players from going to their head, and how do you keep those players just as hungry, just as motivated coming into this season as they were last year?
Well, I watch a lot of Bill Belichick press conferences, and he does not allow anything but the present. So I think that, his singular focus, and look, we haven't done anything this year. We're not defending champions because we don't have the same team, and I think that even last year, when we're rated number 1 in the country for, I don't know, 10 or 12 weeks, that was all well and good, but that's someone else's opinion. And, I kept saying to my guys, I don't know what the number 1 team looks like in October. All I know is I want to be standing there when the last game is and win it, And so I think that you really try and focus on the things you have control over, and also really consider what is your approach with this group, how, and talk to each guy, and I think that, they have to realize they can't just plug into the roles of the guys who just graduated. And then you have newcomers who don't even know what it is, and they have to learn to take on everybody's best game. So it really comes down to, what are we going to do today, and, very much keeping it simple and being process orientated as opposed to, ends and means.
Coach, looking at coaching in general, as a longtime coach, a longtime head coach, how would you define not just your coaching style, but more so your leadership style, both in how you manage your team, your players, and your staff?
I think that, again, I think you're a product of the different experiences and the different mentors you have, but ultimately you have to be who you are. And when you think about that, you have to find your own voice and make a decision of what that really means. And I think a lot of people talk about core values, but, I think the big thing is that, you want to give everybody an honest effort every day. Like no one cares if I had a problem with my kids. All they care about is, what do we do at practice today? Were you engaged? Were you involved? Were you focused? And so for the 2 hours a day, like you got to just lock down and be in that moment so that you can give those players everything that they need to be successful. And we ask the same thing back from them. And I think that, as far as my own development, as far as, how I approach it, I think that ultimately, we look at it as a partnership. We try and have a leadership group as opposed to captains. And the leadership group is a group of 4 to 6 guys who are sophomores to seniors, so that there's buy-in from all facets of the team. When you have 15 guys, you're not going to have one person who's going to be totally, in with every kid. This way we kind of have everybody covered. And those leadership groups have really helped me grow as a coach. I mean, they'll say to me straight up, hey, we need more. We want to go faster in practice. If we're going to play fast, then we need to go faster in practice, or, like last year, the guy said, look, we need to hear more from you, as opposed to the assistants, because I tend to give too much autonomy to my assistants because I want them to become head coaches. So, I try and give my assistants ownership. I try and give my players ownership, so that we all have some buy-in and a stake. I mean, everybody obviously knows we want to win when it's all said and done, but on a daily basis, our focus, and it really happened last year, was, on good teams, coaches create accountability, but on great teams, players create accountability. And so we talk that talk and walk it as much as possible. And so we'd have practices where, kid Matt Droney, who's starting out as a coach now at Vassar, he's got the full-time assistant job there. He'd say in practice, hey, that stunk. Let's do it again. How many times you walk into a practice and a player has that much ownership and belief and is willing to keep everybody accountable? And I think that's what really made the difference. They had the locker room and it was a partnership. So I think that the more that you can partner and the more that you can have honest conversations, then, like if you're conning people, then that's what you're going to get back. So I think that, can we get guys to embrace the grind, because there's going to be highs and lows, but it's going to be a long season, October to March, and there might be 130 practices versus 33 games. You got to like practice. You got to be willing to grind and, really try and make the most of each day so that we grow as a group.
And Coach, we'll end with this. Obviously, if I ask you what your goal for your program is this season, I'm sure you would say cut down another net. But for you, aside from success on the court, for you as a coach, what are your goals for the upcoming season?
I think that it kind of came from our players the last 3 years. And we talked about, one of my players said in one of those leadership group meetings, Coach, my goal is to make sure these seniors have every opportunity to be successful and advance and, have a great, non-conference effort. And then the conference comes and we want to win the conference regular season and we want to win the conference tournament. So it guarantees you an opportunity. And, I thought that was a really astute comment by that one player to say, hey, I'm here to sacrifice for the seniors because this is their last chance. And so if you think about it that way, we're all towards right now. And I think that if we're here to make a difference and sacrifice, then we're going to do it for those seniors who, have had a ton of success, obviously, and they have high expectations. But, each year they're a new person, and I want to make sure they take on that leadership and create the accountability that allowed us to be so successful in the last 3 years.
That's great. Coach Brennan, thanks again for joining us today. Congratulations on the success of your program over the last several years, and really best of luck moving forward this year as you try to defend your national title.
All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Once again, a reminder that all of our webinars can be accessed for free at nabc.com and on the NABC's YouTube channel, and that they're now available in podcast form as well. Simply search NABC on your iTunes or podcast store. Coach, thanks again. Viewers, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to our next webinar.